Yes. Welcome back, liquor lovers. Nate Morgan, joined again by Mr. Herring, the one and only sommelier, son of coffee roasters, woodworker,
water drinker,
husband, furry
underscore.
We're back with another weekly whiskey welcome. Tell us what we're in store for Morgan.
Today we are getting into finishing, the wide world of finishing. This is, as we know, bourbon can only be made if it's in brand new American oak barrels, charred barrels, and that's all it can be. Whiskey, as it's classically designed, can be finished or gets aged in used barrels. But then we're getting into finishing. So this is a bourbon or a whiskey that has undergone a second or third stage in its lifespan, where it saw time in this case, we're doing wine barrels. It's common in maybe scotches. You'll see sherry, port, and we'll do a port finish one of these days. Madeira, this one that starts with an S that I've never heard spoken out loud, so I don't know how to pronounce it. So on and so on. Satan, yes, Satan's barrels. So today what we're doing is a quintet of whiskeys and bourbon whiskeys that are all been finished in various Napa Valley wine. Most of these are coming, and this is what we have Nathaniel for, because gentleman named Dave Finney, who is a big name in the wine industry, kind of kicked this all off. So starting off, we have their inaugural release, which is the Straight Edge. This comes from a company called Splinter Group. They are still producing, however, Dave Finney is no longer at the helm. The Straight Edge is a bourbon, so it did start off life in new oak charred barrels, but it was finished up in some of his Cabernet Sauvignon barrels, and that's
So we're gonna see if this tastes like Cabernet Sauvignon. Probably not, but
yeah. But this comes. Dave Finney also sourced. He chose the bourbons himself, or he and his crew did. They are coming from organic fields, so they didn't want any GMO grains. And it's a blend of 5, 7, and 8-year-old bourbons that got blended before going into these Cabernet Sauvignon barrels.
And maybe for dummies like me, Nathaniel, a couple words about what Cab Sauv would taste like.
Yeah.
What kind of the...
Well, it's hard because obviously there's no Cabernet grapes. I don't think that they're using in this.
No. It's the barrel. It's just the barrel. Just the barrel.
Yeah.
Mercury Head, I believe, was the one.
Mercury Head, which I've had. It's very good. Cabernet Sauvignon, pretty full-bodied. It's what a lot of people think is like a classic steak wine. It's like really high in tannins, and so it's got a lot of structure. It is usually a lot of people say words like black currant, red currant, cassis. It can have
those dark tart fruits.
Yeah, it's not like it's big, it's full-bodied, it's fruity. It's not usually jammy though. It's not like what some Zinfandels can be, which is also another full-bodied, kind of higher alcohol red wine. It tends to be a little bit more complex and a little bit more kind of delicate flavors than something like a Zinfandel. But as far as what aging in a Cabernet Sauvignon barrel that has had Cabernet in it, it'd be interesting to see if there's anything.
Now this is a high corn bourbon. It's 70% corn after you blend everything together, so I'm getting a lot of initial sweetness, definitely that kind of brown sugar toffee sweetness. As far as
there is a little bit of something fruity happening in there.
I'm getting it in the smell, honestly. I am getting a little bit of that very faint dark fruit that I've come to expect from a lot of like older sherry scotches sometimes. It's not very heavy though.
There's definitely something in there.
For me, I'm smelling like marshmallow, vanilla, oak,
Yeah.
The common
They're definitely
association.
woody.
So
It's
I
definitely woody on the taste,
There's
too.
oak. It does definitely have like the taste of its oak barrel aging, but as far as
Well, I mean, it's pretty good that some of the stuff went in the blend has been sitting in new charred oak for 8 years before it got set in the cab barrels. So
And you can expect most of these finishes to be a little like, I mean, I'd say most of it is going to be wood, but then you get kind of some of those subtle undertones that maybe
Yeah.
thicken it up or spice it up, or, you know.
there's also no word on how long it's set in these barrels. In some cases, we've seen rums and other whiskeys that have only sat in another barrel for 2 months. So it's like, what really is it going to get in 2 months?
maybe just I'm imagining this because I know that it's been in Cabernet barrels, but actually I get a little bit of like maybe raspberry. There's like
Okay,
a red.
that could be that
there's some
fruit
kind of like a
smell.
red fruit kind of.
Yeah.
It's a light red fruit, and it's not heavy or super like fruity. It's kind of more tart and a little bit
That
sassier.
the toasted sugary marshmallow toffee. It's caramelish, yeah. So the next one on the list is the second release they've done. This is still under Dave Finney, the Slaughterhouse. I actually quite like this one. This is the second bottle I've picked up. By the way, most of the ones, the first three that we're trying, you're going to be finding in usually the low $40 range, which isn't bad for how old some of these bourbons are. Now the Slaughterhouse itself is actually a 4-grain whiskey. This was aged up to 9 years, and it contains both corn, rye, and barley, and a little teeny tiny bit of wheat. This was finished off in Bordeaux barrels, and but it did its 9 years in used bourbon barrels, so the oakiness should be cut down a little bit.
Yeah.
Bordeaux.
Bordeaux. So that's blends. Cabernet Sauvignon being one of the bigger ones. Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, Malbec, all usually found like in a Bordeaux blend to some extent. But the three major varieties you find are Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Cabernet Franc, and the rest of the varietals typically tend to follow in smaller percentages after that. Which again, that's another. You think red meat, steak, pork chops.
So those barrels could have had, a Bordeaux barrel could have had any number.
Could have had any number
blend in there.
of those possible grapes, and it could have been any possible percentage blend of them too, and even depending on like where they were at in the barreling or the blending too. It'd be impossible to say unless they knew and stuck with that exact percentage blend each vintage for that barrel.
And you know if there's a standard for what kind of wood they use for their barrels for wine?
I mean, they use oak barrels. They get different forests that they source for oak. Like in France, parts of Burgundy are really popular to source oak from. There's
that Limousin oak, and
Allier, there's Truant. Then there's a lot of like oak forests in Spain that they sometimes source from. Italy has some, and you know, I've worked for winemakers that have here domestically that have actually bought oak from those specific forests to use as barrels, and they'll put specific like clones of Pinot Noir in those barrels, hoping to get some of the characteristics that have kind of been documented from that forest. So that's pretty crazy. But
wait for a moment.
we're
Talk
specific.
amongst yourselves.
This for me is a little sharper and lighter, like not as much of a big mouth
Definitely.
coating.
It's like it skips over the tip of the tongue and then sits on the mid palate,
Yeah.
and it's not as long as a finish, not as like vaporous. It doesn't stick around as long for me.
Yeah. It's it might be the mash bill, that rye and that wheat. Like this is something I associate with wheat whiskeys, that kind of like sharp, like
that
light.
kind of really floral kind of sharpness.
Yeah, it's like
Looks
floral in the
slightly
nose,
soapy,
then it's
but not.
yeah.
And then kind of caramely and kind of nutty smelling.
So Morgan likes that one the best. I don't know. I might prefer the straight edge to that.
I think I like the straight edge, yeah, more than this one.
I'm gonna steal
I
some
don't
more
know.
while he's gone.
Yeah, this one compared to the straight edge, I don't know if even after having told me that this was aged in a wine barrel that I would be able to tell that there's.
Yeah. We were saying that this is a lighter mouthfeel, a little sharper.
I
Kinda
like
has
this
that
one
wheat
personally.
whiskey thing.
That's why I'm on my second bottle of it. But apologies for my disappearance. But yeah, you're right. Except for maybe something I'm telling myself I'm getting on the nose, I couldn't tell you it was in a wine barrel.
Yeah, this one's it's good.
Yeah. It doesn't have the same pronounced oakiness that the straight edge does.
Yeah.
Because it came from a used bourbon barrel. But I mean, I like it, and I managed to find it at like $38, so I picked up another bottle because I had already churned through the first one.
That's pretty good. So I think about this in terms of cocktailing, where like the sum of the parts is something different. You know, I'm not gonna, if I put in a cocktail Madeira and orange bitters and dry vermouth and mezcal, I'm not going to taste specifically each layer, but I am going to get a different result from having all those layers in there. So maybe these finishes are more of a, you know, they add kind of a fringe subtlety that
there's like
that creates the whole
thin
thing.
veil that's kind of around everything that's giving it a little something extra. It might disappear in a cocktail though.
It also could just be fucking marketing. Whoops, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the
Don't get us taken down, but you're swearing. Your horrible potty mouth.
Well,
don't you
we'll
know
have to
he would
get-
never say fuck.
we'll have to get
He would never say fuck.
we'll have to get famous before they start taking us down.
And then
Right.
so
we have to get more than 3 views.
the names of these straight edge slaughterhouse whipsaw, clearly they're marketing this towards like guys with beards wearing flannel in their 30s. Hey,
Hi.
Wait a minute.
Wait, yeah.
Shout out to my
Like,
clean-shaven face. I miss my beard.
Shout out to my never shaving again.
love beards.
All right. So the next one on the final list is Whipsaw. This is one that was released after Dave Finney sold his part in this Splinter group. This is finished in a blend of Pinot Noir and Cab Sauv barrels. This is a high rye. It's 76% rye, and it's at least 7 years old, according to the information I found.
What barrels? What did you say?
Pinot Noir and Cab Sauv.
Now, you mean they're not barrels that have had at one time both Pinot Noir and
No,
Cabernet
separate
in
barrels
it?
and they blend them.
Okay, cool. That's so interesting.
Yep.
Those are two varietals that you would almost never find together for any reason. Cabernet being like the higher alcohol, more tannic, fuller bodied, and Pinot Noir being just way more delicate, feminine, more I think much more complex than Cab, but more like astringent and higher acidity, and yeah, they're two. Not, I guess, dichotomous opposites, but they're very different. So to have the two of them together that's pretty interesting.
A shout out whiskey for bringing together two things that shouldn't be together.
Yeah,
Some of my
just
exes.
another
Haha.
just another case.
But
Smells different.
yeah, it definitely smells different. It's a thinner to me on the first initial hit, but then I get a little bit of rye spices on the final.
This one tastes tastes a little bit like rum to me.
Huh? Okay.
It's got that kind of like a sugar cane.
Yeah, it's got a little bit
Sweetness.
higher volatility smell to it.
Yeah.
So it's like the alcohol's really coming out of the glass on me.
It does have kind of a roundness in the mid palate that the the slaughterhouse was a little more sharp forward in the mouth. This one's a little kind of rolling around back there. It's tasty.
Now, all of these have been sourced from various distilleries in Kentucky and Tennessee and Indiana, so MGP, but Bardstown, Kentucky as well. But we're coming on next to the newest iteration, and there's actually, the distillery is open. It's in San Francisco. None of the things you see in the bottle came from that distillery yet. They're working on it though. They're all still being sourced from various places. This is, Dave Finney started another project. This is called Savage and Cooke. If you're ever in San Francisco, go visit their distillery, because they also do wine cask aged tequilas as well. We've got one at the bar. The Ayate up there is a reposado that was done in Chardonnay. Oak Chardonnay barrel.
Pretty cool packaging.
Yeah.
I'm of two minds. Like, liquor gets affected by sunlight and time. So people who do the filmed bottles or the ceramic bottles, I see where they're going. I do love to see that amber color.
Yeah.
So this one is the Burning Chair. This is their bourbon. So it did start off in fresh, new burnt oak barrels. It is only up to about 4 years old though. This is also a high corn. It's 75% versus that 70% at the straight edge. I got these just because I thought they were interesting. Unfortunately, because they are now trying to pull the craft angle out of this, they cost a bit more. These ones were both around in their 60s. And
what's on here? What do we got going on?
We got a picture of a burning chair.
Oh, well.
It's called Burning Chair Bourbon.
Subtlety.
Yeah. They've got a new rye out now that I have yet to try. I don't know if I'm going to pony up for it just yet. Also about $60.
Start another YouTube channel. It's going to be called #The Rye Guy.
Yeah.
The Rye Guy.
These ones were, both of these new ones were finished in these. Dave Finney again. This is his Capsov barrels.
Oh,
He's
okay. There we go.
Yeah.
There's something similar about this one to the straight edge.
Yep.
There's a connection. There's something legit here. Okay.
there.
There's actually something. Okay. I was wondering for a second. I was like, interesting. Very similar kind of marshmallow, vanilla, oak kind of thing going on with this one, and it definitely has like a little bit of that fruit thing as well.
But where the straight edge gains a lot of thickness and good mouthfeel from the fact of how old some of its parts are, I find this one to be rather thin a little bit to me.
It's definitely doesn't have that weight.
Thinner,
yeah.
And I might be
And it doesn't
imagining
have
things because of the name, but I feel like I get more char taste. And I don't know if that's suggestion from the name or if it's something real.
It's not my favorite, honestly. The other ones were kind of fun because they were $40 and under, but at $60, I do not think I will personally purchase this one again. I would highly recommend visiting their distillery and doing a tasting if you're ever going to vacation in San Francisco, though. That could just be fun anyway.
It does taste like an on-fire used chair, to be specific.
It's just what you want. Light grandma's chair on fire. Still it.
Thanks. The final one is the Second Glance. This was aged in ex-bourbon barrels. It is a minimum of 5 years old for some of these. The blends in it, again, Cabernet Sauvignon barrels, but this is even a higher corn amount. This is 95% corn versus the 75 the previous one.
Whose idea was the corn in that reference?
What's that?
That was a really vague one.
I couldn't hear
It was
you.
a tough one.
What'd you say?
You remember the movie Almost Heroes with Chris Farley?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Matthew Perry?
Yeah, as
They had the gauntlet. They're
Lewis
throwing
and Clark type dudes.
corn instead of hot
Yes.
coals.
Fucking
The
A.
guy's like, whose idea was the corn?
I'll drink to that
And
reference.
there you go.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Chris Farley.
Now this one I think has a bit more pronounced smell than the previous one as well.
That smells different.
This has like a really toffee kind of flavor to it. Wow, that's definitely very different than the burning chair.
And you're getting a lot of that from the additional corn sugars that get.
Kind of like actually peanut brittle is what it tastes like.
Okay,
Coffee
you know what? I was
and
going to go a
peanut
little bit nutty myself, but didn't want to make the Austin Powers reference. So.
Peanut brittles, that's pretty on point. Sommelier. Yeah, that you can definitely tell the higher corn. It's corny. It's
interesting.
corny AF.
Again, they're thinner mouthfeel than the Splinter Group's stuff.
Yeah, but I think maybe a little bit more complex. I may be just imagining that.
They're younger, so maybe the fact that they're a younger alcohol they are taking up more from the wine barrels than the other ones because they're older.
Yeah.
These, I noticed that
Told to dissolve solids. You can only hold so much in suspension.
the straight edge seems to have kind of the longest finish out of the straight edge slaughterhouse and the whipsaw. Both of these, the finish develops is much longer, still hangs out, and as it's developing, you get those kind of cool tertiary sort of flavors that are happening, which the straight edge slaughterhouse whipsaw dip down a little bit more as kind of time goes on. So that's kind of neat.
If pressed, you got a favorite?
Oh, I do like the straight edge. I do like that one a lot.
Morgan, your favorite's the Slaughterhouse?
My favorite is still the Slaughterhouse, though I do have an appreciation for the oaky woodiness of the straight edge. I am a fan of that.
Nice.
I like the bottles from the Savage and Cooke. I do like that kind of matte black, but
It's pretty slick.
they
They
don't pour well. You always spill some every time you pour. Doesn't matter who you are, they pour horrible.
You get your pour spout.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I'll take the label off and use it for something later in the future, but I'm afraid to. I think they're just painted.
Yeah,
But
sweet.
And now the blend.
Yeah, oh god.
Tastes just like Cab Sauv.
Yeah, incredible. Actually, this tastes like a first growth Bordeaux. It's unbelievable. Look out, Lafitte.
You're done.
These guys are all coming for you.
He's full of crap.
Sweet. So the wine barrel thing is kind of a niche. Not a ton of people are doing that. Maybe more these days because of this whole.
Yeah, they're getting a little craft
Popularity.
people. A lot of the smaller there's so many distilleries that are popping up, and so many distilleries. It's pretty common to see them doing collaborations with breweries. Hey, we've got this barrel. Go age a stout or an IPA in it, and then give it back to us, and we'll stick a whiskey in it for a while and see what happens.
The Jameson cask mates. and
Yeah,
all the
Jameson
other-
Cask makes. Westland that we've done before just did a recent one with Black Raven
I'd like to
Brewing,
try that.
and the label is awesome.
I love
And
Westland.
I do love Westland.
Shout
Now,
out
what do
Westland.
you think? I mean, do you think it's kind of mostly gimmicky, or would you say that there's actually something to it?
You know-
based upon, I mean, I've just had really these.
I know
so-
for a fact that in the case of like some of these scotches that are sitting in Madeira and sherry casks for 20 years or more, 10 years or more, what have you, there's a lot of flavors that are imparted.
And I could see that because those are like higher
But-
spirit, almost like
True, and-
alcohols than wine.
But as I don't know how long these have been sitting in the barrels, and
Yeah.
it could be they only just got thrown into the barrel, they got a little bit of extra color from whatever was still hiding in the woods and in the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
And they sat there for maybe a month. Maybe it snagged a little flavors on the way out, but I think
It'd be cool to see like one of these
time.
that was like that, I don't know if they even do that, but like if they have like a whiskey
Yeah.
that they have that's like not aged in, it's like
Sure.
a regular whiskey barrel, and then that same exact one that
Yeah.
is in like a just
Side by side
real
comparison.
AV comparison. That'd be cool to see if there's what is
Well,
happening.
Yeah, we've got. I mean, on that note, on the bar level, we've got a small blending and aging cask that Nate here is filled with some sherry.
Oh, yeah.
And he's letting it sit in there for a little while, and then we're gonna pull it out and stick some bourbon in it and see what happens.
See what happens? Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, and it's like try things out. Those little barrels are pretty easy to find on the internet. They're make great gifts. You know, you get married, give it to all your groomsmen gifts party. Everybody can age their own bourbons, but have fun with it, play with it. But yeah, keep a little bit of the before you stick it in the barrel and see what it tastes like. And remember to paraphrase Mythbusters, you know, keep track of these things. If you're not writing it down, you're just dicking around. So take notes.
Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Liquor on the Rock, brought to you in equal parts by Friday Harbor House and alcoholism. Thank you, Nathaniel.
Definitely.
Till
Bye,
next
guys.
time.
Thank you.
All right, have a great
Salud.
evening.